B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by D-Link Technology. Make your home smarter, safer, and truly seamless. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and our guest today is Lamon Gorman, the Service Provider Channel Program Manager with Trend Micro. Welcome, Lamon. So thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
So ESG Research shows that 55% of organizations use more than 25 individual cybersecurity technologies. And despite this, attacks are increasing and bypassing existing controls. IT security teams see more than 10,000 security alerts daily. And according to the Verizon 2018 Data Breach Investigations Report, the average time to identify a breach has increased to 197 days. And containing that breach has increased to 69 days, which means it leaves criminals nearly 9 months hiding in an organization and causing damage. Recently, on December 18th in 2019, a popular MSP tool was used to carry out a ransomware attack. Can you speak to these stats as a whole and tell us more about this recent story?
Sure. Yeah. These stats really, I think, demonstrate the difficult landscape MSPs must navigate to meet the security demands and needs of their clients. Let's drill a little deeper and take a look at the ESG stat that showed, over half of organizations have 25 different cybersecurity solutions in place. And as you pointed out, why are attacks able to bypass all of these controls? Well, while all these solutions are in place, oftentimes they're from different vendors. But also the key thing is threat data and intelligence tends to be collected in a silo and not shared across the solutions and protection points. And further complicating matters for MSPs is the manageability and configuring aspects of each of all of these individual solutions. Again, MSPs have that responsibility. And so something as simple as a misconfiguration in policies, for example, could result in a breach. As it relates specifically to the December 18th revelation there, I found this one very interesting as it's slightly different than what we've seen over the last 2 years or so. For most of 2018 and 19, MSPs themselves have been targets of attack. And usually when they're compromised, the bad actors would execute attacks leveraging stolen credentials, for example. But in this recent case, the attackers actually did not hack the MSP, but instead leveraged a very popular and key tool that MSPs use. And they use this tool to essentially secure a foothold into the network and further compromise other endpoints. Specifically for this attack, we saw the attacker use this tool first to siphon off data remotely and move it off-site, and then actually deploy ransomware to encrypt the data that was actually left on the machine. So this was kind of a turning point from an attack perspective in that they took data off the machine and then encrypted it using an MSP tool.
Now, there are a ton of acronyms in the security space. How do you break down cybersecurity so people can better understand what it all means?
Yeah. This is a tough one working in cybersecurity, as there's so much technology involved. But if I had to simplify it, I would say that cybersecurity should be viewed as a framework. And the objective of this framework is quite simply to mitigate and to deal with risk. The NIST, or National Institute of Standards and Technology, actually released a cybersecurity framework to the public in 2014. I think this was under planning since 2014, but the official document came out in 2018. And this is a great starting point for MSPs or those just interested in really breaking down the basic framework of cybersecurity. And this particular framework breaks down into 5 continuous functions. They're very simple: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So I definitely suggest to listeners, just Google the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, and I think this will simplify all the acronyms and technologies for cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's really helpful. How does cybersecurity fit into the MSP space, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think traditionally, I would say a lot of MSPs viewed cybersecurity as more of a checkbox service that they were offering to their customers. So it was like, yes, customer security is included. This sentiment has greatly changed over the last 5 years. And now MSPs really view cybersecurity as a key business driver when they're looking to expand their managed services footprint. However, one challenge that MSPs are running to as a result of this old checkbox mentality, if you will, is that customers are really under the impression that all of their cybersecurity needs are being met as part of their existing contracts with their MSPs. And so when an MSP really wants to increase cost as it relates to security, it can become a challenge in that their customers are under that assumption that everything's already included. And so for those MSPs that are really having success, they've been able to really help their clients understand what is covered, what is not covered under our current agreements. And really that gap there is where the opportunity is for MSPs as it relates to cybersecurity.
MSPs are now hearing a lot these days about things like AI, machine learning, EDR, XDR, and so forth. And it can feel overwhelming at times. Can you explain a little bit more in detail what EDR and XDR do and what they mean for MSPs?
Sure. So yeah, we're back to some of the acronyms on the technology side, but these are definitely some key buzz ones that we're hearing in the industry for MSPs in particular. So let's take EDR first, or endpoint detection and response. Essentially, this is a technology that constantly monitors and records events on the endpoint and records them into a centralized database where future analysis and investigation can be conducted in the event of some type of breach, for example. So you can think of EDR as CCTV for endpoints. So everything's being monitored. As the name implies, EDR is only really focused on the endpoints. And as we know, threats today are multifaceted, and there are many vectors into an organization's network beyond the endpoint. And so because of this, EDR is actually limited when you compare this to XDR. So XDR, in contrast, is about expanding the detection and response capabilities across email, endpoint, the network, and cloud servers, for example. XDR is about collecting and recording data and events from multiple sources and then applying analytics and correlation across this more complete data set. By doing this, something that was once benign when maybe viewed in isolation or in a silo becomes more meaningful and has more context. And so that's kind of at a high level, the difference between EDR and XDR.
Also, real quick, before we jump straight back into the episode today, we want to tell you about Ingram Micro Financial Solutions and how you can maximize your buying power and get to yes with your customers faster. For the last 9 years, Ingram Micro has been Channel Pro's reader's choice for best financing options. Put the power of our credit and leasing options to work for you. You can easily contact Financial Solutions at ingrammicro.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
Now, do you have any XDR stories that you can share with us?
Sure, yeah. I think XDR is one of those concepts that takes a little bit to wrap your head around it. But let me see if I can demonstrate the power of XDR. So let's take a ransomware detection scenario. In most cases, this type of threat arrives a compromised email. And we just discussed what EDR is. And while EDR could be helpful during the investigation, it is limited because it's only looking at data once the threat has actually hit the endpoint. XDR, on the other hand, since it's looking at a broader set of data, would be able to help answer other questions as part of the investigation, such as who else at the company received this compromised email? Has this email been opened by other employees at this company, or is it still sitting in their email box? What other endpoints may be impacted? So essentially, XDR helps MSPs answer questions such as, how did this happen? Who else may be impacted? What occurred? And what are the potential risks to the business? So XDR really gives MSPs more context and greater understanding as it relates to investigating and preventing future attacks.
Yeah, that sounds extremely helpful. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Trend Micro offers and does, and where people can learn more information about what we talked about today or where they can connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. Trend Micro has been a leader in the cybersecurity space for over 30 years. And, from my personal opinion, I think this really is a testament to our continuous innovation. As we know, the threat landscape is ever changing, ever evolving. And, every couple of days, there's a new technology. And so I think us being here for 30 years is just a testament to that innovation. We have solutions through our portfolio that span the customer's environment, no matter if we're talking about protecting endpoints, email, data center, or even more future-focusing infrastructure such as cloud workloads, for example. And the beauty of our solutions is that they all talk to each other. This is a key piece in this industry today, is really getting everything talking to each other, everything connecting. And so in the end, the sum is greater than the parts. And so when we combine this with our channel-centric program for our partners and resellers, this is really a recipe for opportunity and success. If you would like to learn more about Trend Micro's XDR story, you can visit us at trendmicro.com/XDR. But also, if you'd like to connect with me personally, you could do so via LinkedIn.
And the last question we like to ask on this show is, where do you see technology going within the next year?
Yeah. So just from my personal view, for 2020, I see deep fakes becoming more mainstream and used in more nefarious ways. And deep fakes, for those maybe who are unfamiliar with that term, are basically videos that are manipulated or created using artificial intelligence and machine learning that makes them seem real, but they're not. And so we've seen examples of these and maybe funny or amusing examples of deepfakes, usually after like political debates where, a video comes out and the candidate it looks like they're saying things that they probably did not say during the actual debate. And so they can be very amusing, but I think for 2020, we're in an election cycle. I suspect these videos will be used more to cause confusion and propagate a lot of misinformation. There's that old saying, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. And I think this becomes even more relevant in a world of deep fakes, where can you really believe now what you can see? So deep fakes is something that I think will become more mainstream in 2020.
Yeah, that's something that no one's really brought up on the show before, but I think it's an important one to be thinking about, to be aware of, really make sure you're getting the right information from the right sources.
Yeah, just having conscious and awareness that these exist, I think, is a big first step in 2020.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your information and knowledge with us, and we look forward to hearing more in the future.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram Tech Soul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Carrie Roberts and sponsored by D-Link Technology. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production by Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today in your favorite podcast platform.